Greetings. I am Dr. Noni Davis, and I'm coming to you from North Carolina here at St. C Academy. I am the director and legacy owner of St. C Academy. Um, our institution is 26 years old, and I inherited this school from my parents, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis, who is still with us. And so today, I mean, there's been a lot of uh, conversation about Memorial Day and the African influence or the creation of this celebration of soldiers during the Civil War who gave their lives and contributed to the freedom of our people, of our ancestors, and how our ancestors decided to honor the lives of these men in Charleston, South Carolina. Um, Immediately following, pretty much immediately, because the war ended in April 1865, I think 1864, but in 1860, so May 8, 1865. I need to probably make sure I get those dates correct, but because I'm trying to think where did I get the 1864 date. But anyway, while I'm looking that up, I wanted to just say, let's see, when did the Civil War end? Yeah, April 1865. I was right. Okay. Or May 26th. Let's see. What did it say? It said April 20 to May 1826. I don't know. So they've got all of these numbers. Anyway, so I wanted to start with, okay, yeah, so the other day I accidentally said Happy Memorial Day. I didn't accidentally, but I wasn't conscious of the fact that that is not the way you say. That's not the term you use when you greet people or in acknowledging the date. You're supposed to say, um, we honor those who sacrifice their lives, which makes sense because this is not a happy, joyous occasion. This is a memoriam. And so, anyway, so historically, Memorial Day is celebrated on the last Monday of May. And it is different from Veterans Day because Veterans Day is a celebration of all veterans alive and those who have transitioned, wherein Memorial Day is specifically for those who have died during service. And so several years ago, I did learn on my this Nubia website. It's called Narrative, and Narrative is an African American, well, not actually African diaspora uh, social media. What is my hair doing over here? A social media platform that is a collective of teachers, business owners, doctors, lawyers, a lot of professional people who are from around the world, African diaspora, and I think there are some white folks who are also on this platform. But Dr. Greg Carr, who also is on YouTube, um, shared the importance of this holiday. And so once I learned that about 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to make sure I incorporated it in my, you know, my uh, the academics here, the curriculum here, so our kids understand that that's what this was about, and also share it with my parents, my children's parents, the students' parents. And so, according to history.com, uh, the the African Americans wanted to remember the heroic acts of bravery of these soldiers who had won freedom for them. And so, following the Civil War, there were thousands of unmarked graves of Union soldiers, both black and white, in Charleston, South Carolina. And according to history.com, the United States had to find ways to bury 600,000 to 800,000 Union and Confederate soldiers. And they claimed that this was like, the biggest war on on American soil, and I'm pretty sure the Native Americans would disagree because their the war between Europeans and indigenous people, you know, was horrifying, and millions of indigenous people lost their life. I mean, like I think they said 90 million between South America and North America, and it might be more. I know it was an outrageous number. So when you consider that, and you're talking about millions of people compared to hundreds of thousands, and death is death. So I'm not trying to say, well, this is more than this, because death is death, and war is war. But to say that this war was the greatest battle, the deadliest battle, this would be among mostly white men, and Africans were forced to fight for their freedom. So anyway, that's what they do. Anyway, so by happenstance, in 1996, this gentleman named David Blight was conducting research about the Civil War. And while he was at Hooten's Harvard's Hooten Library, so this is Harvard University, who's in a fight abroad with, who the Trumpster, provided historical documents written by Union veterans. So these are veterans who had written what, recorded, documented what had happened. And then there were also newspaper articles by New York Tribune. And he was surprised to find a file saying the first Decoration Day, and both a handwritten note by a veteran, and also in an article with that same newspaper I just mentioned, New York Tribune. And these were from that time period. According to the letter and the newspaper, a racetrack called Washington Race Course and Jockey Club, located in Charleston, South Carolina, was a posh country club. And what happened is that the folks decided they wanted to turn this into a uh, a prison for Union soldiers. And so Union soldiers, and white and black, had been captured, were taken to that place, that location, and were imprisoned there. And so unfortunately the place was full of disease. There was it was unsanitary. And so they said over 260 Union soldiers died there, and they just threw them into a mass grave. And so Charleston, of course, eventually surrendered. The Confederate troops had to evacuate, and and so newly freed Africans remained there. Now, the when I saw that, I was like, wow, for them, what is our traditional for them to want to bury these people, and conduct some kind of honorable act for these dead soldiers? What did I mean, why would Africans be invested in that? And so I went and did some research on their on spiritual practice of burial, and I already knew some of this. But the freed Africans, according to the farewell guide .co.uk, they have an article called Five Unique Burial Rituals from Across Africa. And the whole point of it was to showcase the different aspects of burial, and then also the similarities in this heritage. But in general, the belief was that the ancestors are seen as protectors of the living, and guiding and protecting their descendants. Ceremonies often involved music, horns, which summon the spirit of these ancestors or of the deceased. And the song and the dance would help the deceased spirit to transition to the afterlife and bring comfort to the living. And these rituals are considered a rites of passage for the deceased. So when I taught my kids about rites of passage, Africans celebrate your birth, with the naming ceremony, and there's a lot of prayer even before the child is born, and so you got the naming ceremony. Then you have your your age group where you're transitioned from childhood around 7 or so, and then you have the one when you become an adult. You're transitioning there, and then into marriage. That's another rites of passage, and then into your eldership, and then of course when you transition off the planet, that's the final rites of passage for you in the ancestral plane. And then, of course, in most indigenous African spiritual practices, they believe that children come back. And for example, we did a naming ceremony for my grandson, and his name, we call him Tunde, which is Baba Tunde, and Baba Tunde means father returns. And we believe that he is here as a representative of my father, my dad, who I introduced at the beginning, William Davis. And Tunde's full name is Judah William Smith. And so we honor, we have that link between the elder, the transition ancestor, and the young person who just got here. So, because of these beliefs, it can be inferred that the newly freed Africans felt it to be imperative to conduct rituals to bring peace and comfort to the souls of these soldiers. And the Africans, therefore, they dug up the 260 plus bodies of these Union soldiers and that had been thrown into these mass graves and reburied them in individual graves in a new cemetery. And the new cemetery was furnished, when they finished burying the dead, 260 bodies or more. Then they set up a 10-foot white fence, picket fence around this new cemetery, whitewash fence, and inscribed a sign or a placard above it that would said, "Martyrs of the Race Course." Now, these Africans did not just stop there. They decided, okay, like I was saying earlier, you had the music, you had the dance, you had um, celebration of these people. So on May 1st, 1865, they organized a parade of over 10,000 people, mostly who were African American, but there were also among them white missionaries, and there were, of that 10,000, 3,000 were African American children who were in the front of the parade, who were singing John Brown's Body, and were also carrying flowers in honor of these fallen soldiers. Um, the march also included three white Union regiments and the famous 54th, let's see, the 54th pageant, 54th regiment. I don't know why I say pageant. But anyway, I wanted to show you a quick picture of this Charleston clubhouse. There's like a trip here. All right, so let me see. So that's a picture of the racetrack, the Charleston racetrack, where the 1865 Memorial Day events took place. And then, so that, yeah, 1865. And then they also provided a picture. This was a Union Soldier Cemetery, Martyrs of the Race. You can't see it very well, but if you look down here, that's the inscription, Martyrs of the Race Cemetery. And so this is someone drew this picture of the cemetery and what it looked like. All right. And so, um, so they can, oh, and so the different soldiers came out, and so you have this one, Colonel Shaw, who was Colonel Shaw of the 54th Massachusetts. These were African Americans who were living in Massachusetts, and theirs became one of the most famous regiments, African American regiments. Here's another one of them fighting the 54th. And then I think that one's the one that had the movie. And then I just wanted to show a picture of Robert Smalls. He's the one. I'm gonna have to do one on him, how he stole that ship and became a U.S. senator. And then this is also black soldiers marching. And I think, is that into Charleston? I don't think that's into Charleston, but anyway, that's them marching into Charleston. I mean, marching. And so we have let's see who's one up. Okay. So they said that over 30 speeches were given by Union soldiers. Several pastors got up and made their speeches as well, heralding the honor of these Union soldiers whose deaths were not in vain. And this memorable event was called Decoration Day. So this was the first name of Memorial Day was Decoration Day. Now, it was documented by the New York Tribune and the Charleston Courier. So there were two newspapers that had documented this event. However, as is customary in the United States of America, um, in Charleston, South Carolina specifically, we know that, at this time, Europeans were still very angry that European Americans that were very angry that they had lost this war. And so, um, I guess within a decade or so, they had managed to completely erase, well, not completely, because of course there was some residual stuff, but they ignored this honoring of these Union soldiers. And of course, we've had following Reconstruction, we had, return to Jim Crow, we had this season of the KKK and other white violent terrorist organizations that were out there just to destroy African Americans. And so the history of Decoration Day kind of got lost as a result of just violence, political violence, physical violence, and historical violence. We just gonna erase you and act like it didn't happen. Um, and so let's see. And so, however, according to this article, Mr. Blight, who, after publishing his book, um, did find an African American woman who must have read his book or sought him out after she's heard about his research and said, my grandfather told us about this Decoration Day, but we just had no proof of it until his book, which was published in 2001, I believe. And what do I have? The name of the book. I don't have the name of the book on this page. What's the name of his book? Oh, it's over here somewhere. I wrote it down. But anyway, let's see. So Mr. Black, okay, decorating day with her father and her grandfather, and she was happy to know that the story was true. So you just imagine that your ancestors have been telling you this story and you have no evidence that this actually transpired. And so when she read this book, she was like, "Oh my God, my granddaddy." And she made sure that David Blight realized that. So for African Americans, this is a recognition of our ancestral practice of honoring those who died and helping them to transition from from the living to the dead, right? In the ancestral realm, by burying their bodies in individual graves and organizing a day of music, song, and prayers to honor their legacy. And throughout the South and the North, uh, there are decoration days. Now, of course, like I just said, they kind of they tried to erase what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, simply because it was organized by Black people. But I did find out that one of the other dates was 1868, and according to the VA, and this is really what was interesting. According to the VA.org, none of these origin stories include the African American celebration in Charleston. So they gave, I think it was New York, no, 1868. So from 1866 to 1868, they have a range of Memorial Days because you had people in Mississippi, people in Louisiana, people in uh what else North Carolina, New York, all of the states at that time, Kentucky, everybody had created some kind of memorial celebration for their fallen soldiers. But the one that happened first was the May 1st, 1865 one in Charleston by the Black people. That one was ignored. They said in 1966, the U.S. Congress and President Lyndon Johnson declared Waterloo, New York, to be the birthplace of Memorial Day on May 5th, 1866, which was a year after the Declaration Day in Charleston. And then you had Time Magazine's article, The Overlooked Black History of Memorial Day, which refers to Black spoke. Oh, there's the name of it: Race and Reunion, the Civil War in American Memory, which he completed in 2001. So I was right. He did do that intentionally. And so he was the one that brought that history back into focus. There was also another origin story that was widely accepted in 1868 at the request of General John A. Logan, who was the president of a Union Army veterans group, and he too asked that folks would. In May 30th, 1868, will go out to the Arlington Grave National Cemetery and bring flowers to put on the graves. And then 20 years later it became a national holiday, and then 100 years later it became celebrated on the last Monday of May, beginning in 1968 under Lyndon Johnson. So today the gravesite of the martyrs of the race course, it no longer is no longer there. They removed it, and I think the graves were removed. Let's see, they said it was replaced in the late 1880s. So they went uh and excavated those bodies again, and this time they moved them to Beaufort, South Carolina, with a new national cemetery, and reinterred those bodies. And now the park was renamed Hampton Park after a Confederate General, Wade Hampton. And this is how our history gets erased. However, truth always rises. And while social media has its flaws and its, addictions and stuff like that, one of the benefits of the internet and of Google and of all of these social media platforms is that the research is there, the information is there, and so if you look for it, you will find it. And so all of these efforts to squash this information is unbelievable. And it's also incredible how it has resurfaced. And in this day and time, while we have someone who's deliberately trying to undermine the contributions of African Americans, it's just impossible. It's just impossible to erase us and act like we were not here, that we have no contributions to this country, we have not added. But even in this war, which they claim to be the most deadliest war with up to almost 1 million people uh, killed, that we, because of our own cultural, spiritual practices, which I really believe, I mean, I'm not saying other people don't have it, but our cultural um, practices demanded, commanded us to go into this space with these diseased bodies, with these mutilated bodies from gun wounds, and it was ridiculous what happened. The level of depravity of war and inflicted upon these bodies, and because of our understanding of helping the dead, understanding that the dead need to have some sort of honorable service over them so that they can transition, while the white Confederate soldiers just threw their body in a mass grave, we found the compassion to take these bodies, black and white, and create a beautiful space for them, pray for them, reinter them, and then march and do parades. And I think even the 54th Regiment conducted drills, and they just did all this military, you know, um, you know, what do they call them? The drills, and display military pride, I guess. And got these, honor these people with the songs and the music and the drumming and all of that. And that is our tradition, the drumming, the singing, um, the remembering, the calling of these people's names, of our ancestors' names. And even though they didn't know their names, they still found a way to do this. And so that just speaks to the humanity of Black people. Um, we could say, "Well, I got my freedom, I'm done," and they said 10,000 people were out there, um, marching, around that racetrack in honor of those folks, and that's what this Decoration Day is. And Social media, like I said, has its pitfalls, the internet, which is also includes African American diasporic innovations. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. How Africans have contributed to 3D, to the development of the internet, and little Nigerian brother was part of that too, and has become a vehicle for exposing these hidden gems of history and sharing them with the world. And so we give thanks. But I also implore you to study. What Saint Sia means, study to show yourself approved. We need to continue to study and find ways of to make sure that we are finding these stories about our people, and that we are sharing these stories and passing them on to our children, so we can see, we're going through this time of the world, not the world, of the United States, of people devaluing African Americans. And we see it. We've been taught. What is it, Malcolm X said? Who taught you how to hate yourself? And so, it's very deliberate in it. But at the same exact time that is happening, we're having this other revolution of awareness of who we are, awareness of our African ancestral space, awareness of our contributions to this country, and elevation. So you see, these things are like, they're two paths. One is going one way, one's going the other. But we need to stay on the path that's going to elevate our people. And this knowledge of this I'm just so proud of my ancestors for doing this. And I just give thanks. Ashe. Ashe.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them, with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So stop it here. You can do it if you try.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I know my mother.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can play the drum.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Cia student.